It is great to see everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. Hello to my AG family, and welcome to the 2026 State of Justice speech. It's nice to see all of you here today, whether you're here in person or virtually. I wish that we could all be together in person, but as you know, our jobs mean we work all over the state for every Nevadan, and so that's what we're doing today. This speech is always a high point of my year. I actually love to discuss the wins for the people of Nevada that we've gained over the past 12 months, because you are the best staff, you are the best co-workers that I've ever had. Told you that before, and I mean it. I got goosebumps just saying it out loud right now. It is important to me that we highlight the work that you do for this office and for the people throughout our state. This year, however, is bittersweet. This will be the last time I get to give a State of Justice speech to you as your Attorney General. Over the last few months, I've actually been thinking about my departure from this office and the work that we've done together over the last 7 years, and I'm not afraid to admit it that I've gotten emotional over these last months. My tenure in this office has stretched over 3 different presidential terms, a generational pandemic, a massive and ongoing legal fight over the harms that opioid manufacturers have caused Nevadans, a nationwide reckoning over police brutality, and many, many more issues that have touched our state and our country. On January the 7th, 2019, I recall vividly standing on the steps of the Nevada State Capitol, looking out at the faces of my family and my friends as I took the oath of office. Around my loved ones stood Nevadans that I had never met before, but Nevadans who I would soon represent, Nevadans who I now have the privilege of fighting for every single day. The work that this office does directly benefits every single Nevadan. That's the neighbor you wave to when you get in your car in the morning. It's the parent of your child's best friend when you go on play dates. It's the cashier checking you out at the gas station. These are the people that you are helping every single day. Today I wore a different lapel pin. Usually I wear our AG lapel pin, but this is one of my favorites. It says, "Speak truth to power." It's a mantra that I've lived by throughout the entirety of my political career, whether I was in the state Senate or whether as Attorney General. And it's important that we do that, especially when we are in positions of power. And through the work that we've done, we have held powerful people and entities accountable. We've helped save Nevadans money. We've protected their rights and the benefits, and we've stood as a bulwark against government overreach. Let's talk about some of that. For example, we are currently in court right now, along with several partners in other states, taking on the federal government. We're taking it to task over costly and unlawful tariffs. Last year, tariffs cost Nevadans nearly $1,000. That's groceries, that's rent, that's gas, and it's money that disappeared through no fault of their own. And that's just one example of how we're taking the federal government to task over recent activity. And we're not just taking them on, we are winning. I've said before, this isn't about policy differences, although to be sure some of us disagree with policies. It's about the rule of law. And that's the reason why we're winning. 71 lawsuits my colleagues and I have engaged in, and we won 90% of those. Again, this isn't about policy or politics or partisanship. It's about the rule of law. Through those lawsuits, we've saved grants worth around $60 million to state agencies and to universities that the federal administration attempted to withhold over the past 13 months. This is a conservative figure, understand, because it doesn't include the SNAP benefits that we successfully returned to Nevadans through our lawsuit against the USDA. Nor does that number include the wins in the education funding freeze case, in which we saved grants that have historically been worth $100 million. We ensured nearly $7.5 million went to Nevada State University, and around $16 million in grant funding went to UNLV, and another $15 to UNR, This is last year, y'all. And thanks to our work, over $19.5 million went to the Emergency Management Performance Grant and Homeland Security Grant Program run by our State Office of Emergency Management. We've also taken on unscrupulous entities like RealPage, bringing very real relief to apartment dwellers to ensure that they can have fair pricing. These are merely some of our wins that the office has brought into our state over this past year. These millions of dollars help Nevadans' education, the food on the table of Nevadans in need, the programs that our universities run for underprivileged students, and many others. You see, our job, as you've always heard me say, is justice. Justice, it must be said, is not partisan. It's not political. Or is it a tool to be used against your enemies? Justice is what is necessary for our country, our entire society, to work for the benefit of everybody. And over the last 7 years of my time in this office, this has been the mantra guiding our work. This motto will continue to be the guiding beacon throughout the remaining year I have in this office. And we will continue to work for the benefit of all Nevadans. As you all know, to ensure that we remain focused on this job and our commitment to justice, we must also remain committed to the principles underlying our work. You know where I'm going with this. You know it was coming, and the fact is it's quite a bit of sadness that I may never get this chance again to reiterate our 5 C's: criminal justice and reform, consumer protection, constitutional rights, client services, and community engagement. Our Solicitor General's office under Heidi Stern's leadership has been working day and night for the defense of Nevadans' constitutional rights over this past year. Keel Ireland, who is our Chief of Special Litigation, has been invaluable in that effort. These are issues that parties can disagree on legally, and there are issues that are plainly explained in law, in statute, or in Constitution. Besides these lawsuits we've brought to ensure federal funding remains in our states, we've also ensured that we stand against any effort to strip away rights from Nevadans, including birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship is a plainly stated right in our Constitution, and one that has been not challenged, seriously, for over 130 years. But we experienced it a little over a year ago via an executive order. Immediately, with no hesitation, our office stepped in to defend the longer-term right of birthright citizenship. The attack on birthright citizenship, in my estimation, is an attack on the very nature of our constitutional rights. Again, it's a right that's outlined, with very few exceptions, that every person born on American soil is an American. To get rid of this right would require an act of Congress, and simply stated, it can't be done by an executive order. We've also protected Nevadans' rights of privacy from unconstitutional overreach. We push back legally against early efforts to allow the non-governmental Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, from violating the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. In addition, we are exceedingly proud of the work that we've done to protect the electoral rights of Nevadans and to protect our state sovereignty. Our nation's free and fair elections have always been the cornerstone of American democracy. And in our work to protect democracy, we have to protect the right to vote. We have to stand against any effort to dilute, to complicate, or to damage this right. And thankfully, Chief Ott and the Government and Natural Resources Division have been at the ready to protect these rights. I'm proud to say that our office is co-leading a case fighting back against an unlawful executive order that's related to elections. To put it plainly, the states oversee elections, not the federal government. And we will always step in to protect that right. I've also said since day one that if there's ever evidence of voter fraud, I'm going to prosecute it. When evidence was presented in a handful of cases, we did just that. And I need to be clear, however, that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud, and certainly no evidence that there was enough fraud to impact the results of our elections. Chief Ott and his division, again, have been vigilant in defending our state's laws, giving Nevadans the right to vote by mail against those who claim incorrectly that these mail ballots have higher instances of voter fraud. In addition to that, Chief Engler and her prosecutions division are currently engaged in litigation against those who have allegedly misrepresented themselves as electors. As Nevada's top law enforcement official, I'm proud to say that we've also done champions work in the area of our second C, criminal justice and reform. Human trafficking is one of the most evil and pervasive problems facing our society. These are bad goosebumps that just came up. And protecting our community's most vulnerable members is a key role of our office. The safety of the public as a whole is undermined when human trafficking is not met with a strong response. So to that end, our office's investigators have worked with Northern and Southern Nevada human trafficking task forces, worked with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office and other partners throughout Nevada to combat human trafficking. And since 2019, I'm proud to say that our investigators have referred 41 cases for prosecution, 36 of which were the result of a John Sting operation. I supported legislation to make computer-generated pornography a crime, and we passed legislation that followed the advice of leading child safety advocates to change the term child pornography to child sexual abuse material in state statute. I want to thank you, Chief Engler, for being a champion of that effort as well. Our office has been quick to call out companies that allow their AI software to churn out child sexual assault material. In addition, we have continued our important work to protect Nevada's children from predatory aspects of current technology and social media. We've filed lawsuits against YouTube, Kick, TikTok, Snapchat, and 3 Meta-owned platforms. You heard of them: Instagram, Facebook, and Messenger, for the harms they have done and are doing to our children. These lawsuits are vital in the constantly changing world that we live in, so that companies know that our children are not the testing ground for new technology. In furtherance of our mission to protect victims and survivors and to see justice done, we've also worked to eliminate the decades in the making rape kit backlog. In late 2020, we were able to announce that this backlog under our administration has been entirely tested. Once elected as Attorney General, I served as chair of the Advisory Committee on Rights of Survivors of Sexual Assault, which published the first ever Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. Strengthening support for victims has been also one of our main goals in this office, which is why I'm especially proud to have added, for the first time, victim support services to the AG's office during my tenure. Thank you to Summer Harris and to Leah Ling Sutler, our victim witness advocates, for their diligent work. Also, Jamie Trevino, our ombudsman for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, launched a new statewide victim notification system this past year. The launch was another effort on our part to do the vital work that needs to be done each and every day. One of the most important tasks of our office has been entrusted with is to protect our state's Medicaid system. Mr. Schulke, I'm gonna say a few words about you and your group. Impoverished and medically vulnerable people rely upon state Medicaid services for critical healthcare needs and medical support. And our Medicaid Fraud Control Unit, led by Chief Schulke, have been champions over the last 7 years in ensuring that bad actors do not abuse the Medicaid system that so many Nevadans rely upon. I'm gonna go off script, because I mentioned SNAP earlier, and I'm mentioning Medicaid now. Some of you know my story, some of you don't. I became a single parent when I was in college. After my junior year in college, I had a son. I almost dropped out of school, but I didn't. I was able to get on Section 8 housing. I was able to get on food stamps. They call it SNAP now. I was able to get on Medicaid. Food stamps kept my son and me fed. Medicaid kept my son and me healthy. So when these things are under attack, they hit me differently. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done to protect SNAP benefits and to protect Medicaid. So I want to take that chance to thank you for the work you're doing, because this crew has obtained 154 convictions, and 75 civil settlements since January of 2019. That's for a grand total of, get this, $65,247,039.75 from 2019 to 2025. In one example, our MFCU concluded an investigation and prosecution that actually began in 2017 and resulted in 11 individuals being convicted of crimes relating to their roles in Medicaid fraud and in operating fraudulent behavioral health systems. Our MFCU's work resulted in restitution of approximately $5.5 million being ordered and being repaid to Medicaid. As you've heard me say before, I have often framed community relations with law enforcement and the government as falling into one of three types. The first community is the one that you've seen on Law and Order SVU, where Olivia Benson gets on the stand and everybody's nodding their head at her testimony because she's telling the truth and everybody else is lying. That's the community that says that we believe in government. We have the utmost trust in government. The second community is the one where government once had the highest level of trust, but for some reason it's diminished now. Maybe it's because of something that happened to them, or maybe it's something they saw vicariously happen to others. The third kind of community, frankly, the one that I grew up in, had little to no trust in government, especially law enforcement. Let's be clear, we wanted them to show up when bad things were happening, but sometimes bad things happened when they showed up. And so what I've endeavored to do is to ensure that we can augment trust through our office where it already exists, that we can restore trust in government and law enforcement where it has been diminished, and that we can create it where it's never existed before. That trust is an important and integral responsibility of law enforcement, and it needs to be instilled in the communities in which we protect. Without working to instill trust, communities will see law enforcement as outsiders coming in rather than members of the community who are working to keep it safe. This overlaps with one of our C's, community engagement. That said, unfortunately, the last 7 years have seen tragic acts of violence committed, unfortunately, at the hands of law enforcement on citizens that they've been entrusted to protect. In 2020, George Floyd, a father, a son, a community member in Minneapolis was, we can now say, murdered by a police officer. Around that same time, Louisville resident Breonna Taylor was killed during a no-knock warrant entry by law enforcement. And in the aftermath of this, I knew we had to hear directly from the community on what issues they thought mattered the most for reform. As such, we hosted, as an office, a series of town halls you may recall. It was called the Justice and Injustice Forum. And I promised those participating that the conversations would be used for legislative development the next session. Senate Bill 50 made drastic changes to the ability of officers to execute no-knock warrants in Nevada. And AB 58, which gave our office the authority to conduct pattern and practice investigations. Both of these bills were signed on the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. Notably, they passed unanimously. Every Democrat, every Republican saw the work that we did. We worked with them to formulate policy that everyone could agree upon in moving this ball forward and to enhancing the trust that's necessary. Soon after I took office, I directed our office to examine current policies and procedures for opportunities for reform. That culminated in policies that promote justice in prosecutions. These policies were outlined to better determine fair and equitable policies for law enforcement purposes. And I want to thank Assistant Attorney General Christine Jones-Brady for her work on these policies and the guidance on such matters over the years. As law enforcement, we swear a sacred oath to serve and protect the public, but it's difficult to serve a public that doesn't trust us or that is afraid of us. We all wear the same badge and shoulder the same burden to earn the public's trust. Unfortunately, right now, federal immigration operations have shown exactly the wrong way to interact with communities. ICE's policy allowing their agents to remain masked and unidentified is extraordinarily dangerous in both civil liberties and physical safety. This isn't me talking. This is your neighbors, your friends, some of your colleagues who have voiced their very real concern. And by the way, they're not all immigrants, but they do feel the concern. Because masks have allowed bad actors in law enforcement to evade detection and made it impossible for the public to determine if they're even being legally detained. Law enforcement can sow seeds of trust within our communities. I know this. I know this because I've witnessed the good work that our investigations division, helmed by Sean Bowen, and a lot of work initiated through Donche King and several others. I've seen the work. I got goosebumps, y'all. I've seen the work that they do. They are out there virtually every single day, letting the community know we do more than put people in jail. We're your friends too. We're your neighbors as well. We're the soccer moms and dad as well. And I want to give a round of applause to our investigators and Acting Chief Bowen for their work. Give it up. We took steps to work with other law enforcement agencies to help build that trust, including by hosting law enforcement summits across the state and by working together on educational and professional efforts to build back trust in our community. Building trust in the community includes legal reform. After cannabis was legalized in Nevada, there was a push for relief from those who had been convicted of charges related to cannabis. For example, due to the work our office undertook with state partners, over 15,000 people were pardoned without the need for any additional action on their part. Our post-conviction division's work has been vital in ensuring justice is done as well and helping to restore trust. You heard me say, if you were here on the very first day of second day. First day we had crudité and everything. But on the second day when I introduced myself to you, I reminded you that, in my estimation, justice isn't just about arrest and conviction. It's not just about a notch on the belt. It's about a recognition that systems are made of people, including the criminal justice system. And people are fallible, which means systems are fallible. And justice requires that sometimes you have to recognize that if you make a mistake, you must exonerate and compensate. I found Johnny Cochran up in here. But that's exactly the philosophy we brought into this office on day 2 on the job. Recognizing that justice required that work, and our post-conviction division team under Chief Heather Proctor's division, in that same vein, has dealt with 16 wrongful conviction cases since 2019. That's justice. None of that has gone to trial. And 100% success rate in this work is something I'm very proud of. Let's give it up for her as well. Thanks to our criminal prosecution division, we have ensured that those who would do harm to incarcerated individuals under our protection in Nevada's prison system also saw justice. Justice doesn't stop at the prison bars, y'all. As an example, last year we announced homicide charges against 20 defendants for the deaths of 3 inmates in Ely State Prison. Because again, justice does not stop at the prison gates. We've also ensured those who would seek to defraud the state face justice as well. We filed charges against Stephen Allen Cromer, the owner of Uprise LLC, for allegedly diverting millions of dollars of taxpayer funds earmarked for a fiber optic project in Lovelock to his personal bank account. Lastly, because of the diligent work by our grants team, led by Jessica Hoban and John DeCoco, our office has held training events in both Las Vegas and Reno for law enforcement and others to help them better understand Nevada's what's called high-risk protection orders, better known as red flag laws, with the intent to help us lower the instances of domestic violence in our state. Let me turn to another C, consumer protection, and take a moment to applaud the work of the Consumer Protection Bureau, our chiefs, Figueroa and Kruger, and every individual member of this office who works to ensure consumers are protected from those who wish to defraud them. Consumer protection, if you recall, was probably the only entity that I called out by name when I took this job, and I'm very happy to see that they've taken it seriously. And the work we've done in this office is second to none. It's difficult for me to fully express how proud I am of the work this office has done to mitigate the harms done by the opioid epidemic and hold those responsible for its spread accountable. The vast majority of the settlement money achieved through this litigation will go towards public health efforts to remediate those harms, impact, and address the risks caused by the opioid epidemic through our crowning achievements called the One Nevada Agreement on Opioid Allocation and Opioid Recoveries. I'm ecstatic to say that as of today, the total amount of money that we have secured through the opioid settlements we've pursued is over $1.2 billion with a B. And I want to take a tangent and let you know that, look, this wasn't always an easy task to undertake. Some of my own colleagues, my attorney general colleagues across the nation, we got together on some of these lawsuits and we worked together and we came up with nationwide settlements. But some of them, I said that it wasn't good enough for Nevada. And I had to go it alone sometimes. Republican colleagues, Democratic colleagues all looked at me like I was crazy. And they were not happy that I would represent Nevadans in the way that I did. But what has happened is we've been able to, on a pro rata basis, recover almost more money than anybody else in the country because we, in this office, work for Nevadans. And that $1.2 million, once that money is dispersed through the agreement's local and county level signatories, the state's portion is going to be over $500 million. Outside of the opioid settlements, our Bureau of Consumer Protection has also brought in over $205 million, y'all, in non-opioid related recoveries since 2019. That includes $30 million from T-Mobile, $1.5 million from Equifax, $14.5 million from Google. This list is, of course, nowhere near complete, but it's indicative of the work that they put in. And in addition, in order to minimize the impacts that Nevadans would have experienced from a proposed merger between T-Mobile and Sprint, we negotiated a settlement under which no Nevadan, not one, would lose their job as a result of the merger. In addition, T-Mobile would deploy a new expansive 5G network and make a charitable contribution to programs for women and minority-owned businesses, among other requirements. That's us standing up for Nevadans in particular. And by the way, some of my colleagues across the nation were not happy that I didn't join in the lawsuit, ultimately one that they ended up losing, but that we prevailed and stood up for Nevadans. Another win in the field of antitrust was our agreement with other states and the FTC under the Biden administration to work to block the merger between grocery store giants Kroger and Albertsons. That wasn't just my idea. This was information I got from doing over a dozen community forums and town halls all over the state, rural Nevada, urban Nevada, suburban Nevada, talking to folks, and we took that information back and we successfully blocked that merger. We worked hard to strengthen the powers we had to hold antitrust violators accountable as well. In the 2021 legislative session, we successfully passed Assembly Bill 47, which made important changes to our state's Unfair Trade Practices Act, especially in the review of healthcare consolidations and mergers and acquisitions. Another way this office is helping Nevadans every day is through our consumer advocate, who represents the interests of customers before the Public Utilities Commission. Again, hats off to Ernest Figueroa and his division for their advocacy and for their diligence in ensuring that power rates are reasonable and fair, and that the PUC is taken to task when they are not. Our office continues to do intensive work in reaching settlements with those companies who've harmed Nevadans, and we've brought in quite a bit of money into Nevada for both the state and Nevadans themselves. A couple of examples. We agreed to a nationwide $7.4 billion settlement with Purdue Pharma and its owners, the Sackler family, out of which Nevada is going to get $58 million. We reached a settlement with Hyundai and Kia for their sale of millions of vehicles nationwide that lacked industry standard anti-theft technology. We know our own state has suffered and some have lost their lives because these cars were stolen. A car was stolen under this particular circumstance, and someone lost their life. These companies have agreed to provide up to $4.5 million in restitution to consumers and $4.5 million as well to the states. One portion of consumer protection work, which is incredibly vital, is communicating the risks to Nevadans ahead of potential victimhood. If Nevadans know the risk of scams, cons, and frauds, maybe they can be more informed and make better decisions. As an example of the work we've done in that area, we publicly urged Nevadans to destroy their 23andMe data. That's the DNA family tree organization. They went bankrupt and they were looking for buyers of their assets. And we communicated to Nevadans to delete their information. We have continued our work on the bipartisan Operation Robocall Roundup, and we're working to ensure large voice providers are not transmitting robocalls across their networks. During the pandemic, our BCP was on point, identifying new scams that fraudsters were developing while Nevadans were being forced to adjust to a new normal that was anything but. Client service, a very important component. And I know that the attorneys we have working with our clients are the best in our state. Our client service is one of the cornerstones of the work that we do. And I know that our state agencies are in good hands when our staff is advising them. I'm going to give special thank you to Craig Newby. Craig, my first Assistant Attorney General, for the work that you and your team have done in leading this team of talented and driven lawyers. Chief Bordelove of Boards and Open Government and her division have done vital work of supporting public trust in our governmental bodies by holding employee trainings on state open meetings laws, public records laws, and ethics laws. Chief Caruso, the guru in gaming, has helped support our state's most important industry by advising and representing the Gaming Control Board and the Nevada Gaming Commission. That work is wide-ranging, from extensive regulatory reviews to resolving complaints, such as the disciplinary case against a former casino mogul, which resulted in a $10 million fine. This division has also worked diligently to stand up for our clients, defending against illegal sports prediction markets, doing yeoman's work in that regard. We also know the struggles this state went through during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the work that we did for our clients during this time was vital for the operation of our state. This work was shared by the entirety of the office. In fact, I don't think there was a division in this office that did not see some COVID-19 work run through your office. But the Health and Human Services Division, now headed up by Chief Sharon Benson, did great work for this unprecedented healthcare catastrophe. Under her leadership, the division continues to offer advice on complex matters such as children's mental health and behavioral health. Chief Detmer, under his leadership, the Business and Industry Division has been integral in the operations of the state's Department of Business and Industry. His division has taken on complicated projects, including advising the Office of Nevada Boards, Commissions, and Council standards in creating administrative uniformity in the boards brought under its purview. Our Public Safety Division, Randy, where are you? Good work. Man, that's a lot of work over there. But his division has defended the Nevada Department of Corrections in lawsuits on both the state and the federal level, as well as provided needed advice on administrative measures. Our office also worked diligently with NDOC to protect the medical rights of offenders in our penal system. By 2024, every consenting offender in the system had been treated for hepatitis C. And NDOC continues to treat all offenders within the first year of their incarceration. In addition to advising and representing the Department of Taxation, our Taxation Division, headed by Chief David Pope, has enforced tobacco sales laws restricting access to minors and advised the Cannabis Compliance Board on many new and emerging issues, including the creation and implementation of the cannabis lounge licensing process. Our Personnel Division, headed by Chief Cameron Vandenberg, has likewise done vital work to ensure our state employees receive reasonable disability accommodations and fair considerations of FMLA leave. She's also ensured our client agencies have representation in employment matters, and she ensures that all relevant employment advice on discipline is given to our clients. It's a lot of work in that area. And Cameron, I'm proud of you. Our transportation division, newly headed by Chief Gordon Goolsby, similarly works in many different arenas, including advising the Department of Public Safety on Brady gun licensing issues, on representing parole and probation in its legal challenges, and assisting the State Department of Transportation in work to expand telecommunications and internet infrastructure throughout the state. As an example of the necessary work this division does, they were instrumental in the successful award of a $3 billion federal rail administration grant to fund the design and construction of a high-speed rail system along the I-15 corridor a few years ago. And when the best client representation doesn't lead to resolution, Jessica Whalen and the Division of Complex Litigation steps in. And boy, are y'all busy. They work hand in hand with other attorneys in our office and our Solicitor General's office to win in trial and in appellate courts. Every member of our team working in client services has arduous jobs and tackles niche legal matters every single day. These jobs got even harder when we were hit with that worldwide pandemic. Our office was scattered to the wind. Y'all remember, if you were here, we held a big Lifetime meeting. We didn't use Zoom back then. It was that Lifetime thing. And we were on the screen, and I expressed to you the importance of taking care of your families. If you needed to stay and take care of children, do that. If you need to take care of elderly folks, do that. But we still had a job to do because we were professionals. And I knew that job would be done. And it was. We never faltered in the work that we did for our constituents and for our clients. And I'm immensely grateful to you all for that. During that time, we successfully stood up for the legality of the COVID-19 mitigation efforts that kept our community safe. We helped to draft new regulations regarding open meetings laws, now that in-person meetings were highly dangerous. We helped to advise the state education department on new educational requirements and legal issues. And we helped the Secretary of State run an election in which in-person voting was a potential super spreader event. Some of y'all might have forgotten about this. That was a tough time. In the state, to be sure, but in our office particularly. And those of you who were here rose to the occasion, and I am so grateful for the work that you've done. And I'd be here all day if I had to list every single thing we did to keep the government running for the people during that pandemic. It's not hyperbolic, I think, to say that every single piece of our state's government had to be examined and potentially reconfigured for what is, God willing, a once-in-a-lifetime event. Turning now to community engagement, and again, discussing the pandemic, Nevadans were scared and often confused as to whom they needed to turn for basic answers. Our community engagement was second to none during that time as well. I know we had some of the state's most talented public-facing employees in the state. Get this, our constituent services team was at the front lines of the pandemic. Nevadans called our office seeking help, and members of our CSU, led by Adriana Smith, were there to answer. Between July 2020 and December 2021, our CSU members received 11,040 complaints and 30,277 inquiries. That's the level of work that they were doing for our residents, many of whom were in the early days sequestered in their homes, worried about bills and health of their families. So I want to say thank you to the CSU team for the work you did for ensuring people would have someone available in this office. Speaking of CSU, since my time in office, they've received 51,744 complaints. I'm especially proud of the work that CSU does because their ability to work through those challenging circumstances by, for example, resolving over 8,000 complaints just last year, even though our state was hit by a cyber attack. I'm proud to highlight the work done by our Office of Military Legal Assistance, led by Don Jensen. My predecessor, Adam Laxalt, instituted this program that I thought was a very good program for the state. We maintained it, and Don Jensen has done a great job, which has helped over 3,200 service members and veterans. In addition, this office maintains a monthly Ask a Lawyer event at the North Las Vegas Medical Center to provide free, no appointment necessary legal consultations. Our outreach work this past year has also been on point, and we debuted new tools for the public to access services in 2025 as well. We opened a new webpage in which Nevadans can report disruptions to their Social Security payments after chaotic and disruptive changes made by the current administration. Our investigations were, as usual, extremely active in the community, beginning with an event at the Mexican consulate in which they discussed notario fraud, immigrant rights, and our office's hate crime hotline. Our MFCU continued their tradition of community activity, including in education and training, to the Nevada Pharmacy Board. Members of our office attended and staffed the Richard Steele Foundation Christmas Toy Giveaway last year, in which 150 children received toys and support over the holidays. And many of you over the course of the 7 years I've been here have accompanied me to serve the less fortunate during Thanksgiving. I've seen many of you in there. My sons and I have been doing this for probably 20 years, and it was great to have you accompany us again as an extension of our community service. And of course, when it comes to community engagement, I must also thank my communications team, John Sadler and Alcinia Whiters, who write speeches that are the envy of attorneys general all around the nation. At least that's what they told me. Every single one of you has done a phenomenal work for our office, and we run a machine that we should all be extraordinarily proud of. I want to thank the office managers and our legal secretaries for the remarkable support they provide to our 184 attorneys. I want to thank the fiscal division for their sound financial stewardship of the agency's 23 accounts. I have to thank the IT division for maintaining our networks and fending off constant cyber security intrusions into our systems. And I have to thank our small but mighty human resources team for fostering a positive work environment and making all 400 plus employees feel seen and heard. Let me also thank my general counsel, who has my front, back, and side to side. Y'all heard me use that before, right? Leslie Nino Pirro, who ensures that our office operates in a transparent and ethical manner. And lastly, let me thank my boss, Teresa Benitez Thompson. Where are you, TBT? I'm so grateful that you joined this office. I remember when Jessica left and I was at a conference with other attorneys general, just wrecking my brain over who we were going to get to come in. And it's such a coup to have you come in and work so well in this office to keep us moving. And I'm grateful to you. So thank you so much for being here. From a generational pandemic to cyber attacks and service outages, from brand new legal challenges to good old-fashioned criminal prosecutions, we have handled these things as a team. I hope that in the years to come, you look back on the time that we spent together in this office with immense pride. You should feel that pride because what you do matters so very much. You're ensuring that our community does not suffer. You're ensuring that our neighbors, if they are victims, can become survivors. You're ensuring that Nevada remains the great state that it is. I know that I'm going to feel that pride after I'm out of this position. And it's because every day I was able to come and work alongside people like you. I respect you, I admire you, and I try to emulate a lot of things that you do in the community. And I'm going to keep this close to my heart. It's been a great experience. So thank y'all so much for being part of this journey with me. And while it's bittersweet, I am earnestly looking forward to our final year together. Thanks, everybody. All done. Y'all go back to work.